Good evening, and welcome to this third rehearsal of Westchester Oratorio Society for Fall 2020. Welcome to our members, and a special welcome to those joining us from around the country and around the world. Okay, let's get right to it with the Cantique de Jean Racine. As I've said before, I think it's really critically important to know what the piece means, so I like to put the translation somewhere on the first page. You can put it wherever you'd like. Some people like to put it line by line. Some editions come with the translation in the piece, but I prefer it where I have it here in the upper left. So I think it's important to know what we're singing about, and it shows, gives us a glimpse into the composer's life to see the type of text that they chose. And with somebody like Fauré, the same with somebody like Mahler, the text is going to be exquisite. Fauré, Mahler, Brahms, they had such great taste when it came to words and literature. It's a real joy just to read the translation separate from the music. Okay, let's get started here. Let's start with the bass entrance on the Faire Bégal. Faire Bégal. Okay, 2 and 3. Alto. Stay soft, soprano. Little crescendo. Big sound. Full volume. Soft and répond. Breath. Soft. Stay soft. Now just mezzo. Now forte. Soft. Articulation tenor. Breath. Soft. Crescendo. And then forte. Espressivo. Full value. Lots of air. Full value. Okay, such a divine piece. You know, for being so young, Fauré really shows us, kind of like Schubert as well, what a master he is already of every aspect of this piece. If you tuned in last week and saw my little mini lecture on Fauré, then hopefully you could see that in the early works, the piano quartet, the Cantique de Jean Racine, the songs, that he just demonstrates such a great depth of composing, of text setting, and it's so apparent in this piece. Gets me every time. I love it. Both as a singer and as a conductor, it's always a pleasure looking at this piece. Okay, so let's look at some key moments of rhythm here. Go back a few bars, a couple of pages. I have top of page 17. But it's important for the choir, when we have the eighth notes, that we don't conform to the triples in the accompaniment. Tourne, call, play. So you have to come in earlier than you probably feel like you have to. Tourne, call, play. Sometimes it helps to play the duples in your head. Don't do it while you're singing, but it helps the rhythm to be very exact in that way. So just be aware of that. And then the piano subito here at the bottom, we all have to breathe, except for soprano. Soprano carries through to beat 3.5 or so. Le, et, deux. Okay. Then, I believe that's it as far as the rhythm goes. Now let's go back to the beginning and talk about the pronunciation. We did this on our read-through, but it's been a while since then, so let's go back to that moment. At the very beginning of the Ferbegal au trio. Sorry, takes a moment here. There we go. Okay. Speaking of the rhythm again, basses, make sure that we, again, do not conform to the triples. Not Ferbegal. No, it's Ferbegal, Ferbegal. In fact, what I would do is I would put the 16th note almost on the downbeat. Ferbegal, oh. Just so we hear a difference between that and the accompaniment. We have the Italian E for égal, au, très, the accent grave, and then O. And basses breathe before the tenors enter so that we breathe together. Notre, and here, as I said before, we have the umlaut. Qu'espérance, make sure that it's qu'espé and not qu'espé, not the uppercase E, it's the accent aigu. Qu'espérance. Joue, et, and whatever symbols have the most meaning for you. I prefer the IPA because it's what I was brought up on, but you can put whatever you want there. I prefer, though, this system so that my brain registers, it's the bright A versus the Italian A versus another type of A. Jour éternel de la paisible nuit. And then soprano, make sure here that we come in soft. In fact, this entire opening for everybody, super soft. Nous rompons. I prefer these to be almost A, maybe the open O, just to keep everything in tune. Devant, sauve, and only here do we start to crescendo. Okay, so this piece is all about restraint. Restraint in the opening, then do the crescendo when the composer says, and that's when we see the magic really happening. Okay, devant, sauveur, jette. Make sure that we have the schwa at the end. Sur, with our umlaut, nous, les yeux, and a little elision. Okay, let's try that from the bass entrance. Ferbegal. 2, and 3. Tenor. Breath. Stay soft. Bass, and then soprano soft. Divin. And now crescendo, crescendo. Keep crescendoing. Breath. Si. Excellent. Okay, great. Now let's go on to the next part here, talk about the text quickly. Répond, and make sure that we flip the R. Whatever symbol you want to put there, I just put the R to remind me to flip it, whatever means something to you. Ré, with the accent aigu, so again, répond. Our umlaut again, répond sur. Nous, le feu, and here, make sure that these are articulated eighth notes. I like to put the wedge to tell me to put some articulation, but it's not an accent. Okay, these are intermediate words in the middle, not to be accented. Le, feu, de, ta, gra, de, ta, gra. If everybody does that in unison, it'll be perfectly audible. De, ta, gra. And we have here the accent, you can barely see it there, circumflex. I like a nice bright ah. De ta grâce. Sorry, with the schwa at the end. And then puis. Santa, que tout l'enfer. Everybody, in this section, as I said before, lots of restraint. Stay very, very soft. Double piano, concentrate on the enunciation of the text, and the volume will take care of itself. And we crescendo only when printed. Tout l'enfer, que tout l'enfer. And then our big forte. Puis, make sure that we hear the audible puis here. Also on de ta voix, and again, attention to rhythm, not de ta voix. No, that's the triples, that's the accompaniment. De ta voix. Lots of air, then soprano alto. Okay, let's try it from that much. From répond. Répond sur nous. 2, 3. Tenor. Now a little crescendo, poco a poco, little more, forte, rhythm, soft, le sommet d'une âme languissante. Now forte and excellent. Okay, so let's talk quickly about this section that we just sang here. Again, lots of restraint will pay dividends in the end. I think we'll really see the magic of the composition. Let's go back to disipa and soprano alto. Make sure that this is the E, yeah, and not di. Disipa, very hard to sing that in tune. If we sing disipa, much easier, more in tune, and it'll be more appropriate for the texture. Tenor bass, the same thing, disipa. And soprano and tenor here on le, sol, me. definitely appropriate to give little articulations to the eighth notes. Le, sol, mi, to contrast the triples in the accompaniment. Dynama, we have the umlaut here as well. Dynama, and not so much a glottal on the ama, but we need to hear, it doesn't elide too much. Dynama, dynama, and then langi. Again, the lowercase I here, languissante. Bass and tenor at the bottom, mezzo forte. So nice, we do it twice. We have forte in the second iteration. This one, qui la, much gentler. Yeah, save the forte for the next time around. So we have that soprano alto on the next page. A l'oubli de tes lois. Spend your energy articulating the eighth notes in rhythm, not triples, and then we'll hear how that fits in with the accompaniment later. May feel mechanical, but it's actually magical. A l'oubli de tes lois. All right, I think that's about it. Key long, there's our forte. Okay, let's go back to dissipe. Dissipe from the soprano alto. Dissipe, 2 and 3. Articulate. Dynam. Now just mezzo. Soprano. Rhythm. Now forte. Excellent. Okay, everybody, in this bar of Loa, and we very quickly get to the Loa. Don't spend too much time languishing on the L. A l'oubli de Loa. No. De te Loa. And nice bright ah. Everybody, we sustain for 2 beats, including the bassist. If bassist, put a quarter rest in there. And then I like to put a little lift after O Christ. O Christ, soif. But make sure the T is soft. Not O Christ, soif. No. O Christ, soif. Still in that sublime texture and feel that Fauré is known for. Favorable. Make sure that we elide these quickly. Ra. Tenor's rhythm here. I like to put the 2 little wedges there. A, se, pe. A, se, pe. The same treatment as the soprano alto. A l'oubli. A, se, pe. Oops. Fidèle. There's our accent grave. So this is the uppercase E. Dèle. Pour te. And make sure that we don't put too much R at the end. It's really pou, just like jou. Reçoit les chants. Altos, make sure that chant is plenty bright and not too far back. If we sing chant, it'll probably be out of tune. Soit les chants qui... And then sopranos, again with lots of restraint here, make sure that we sing piano. Reçoit. And reçoit, really closer to schwa here. Reçoit les chants. Okay, let's sing it from O Christ. And articulate tenor. Stay soft, reçoit. Stay soft. Re. And crescendo. Big forte. Stay strong, stay forte. And subito. Before we go on here, I need to talk about this moment because this is a key moment in the piece and requires actually great agility from the singers. It's easy enough to crescendo. Make sure in these bars here that we crescendo over the course of the 2 bars. Forte sempre. I would not only circle the forte sempre, but in the next bars put forte again because it's easy to forget. And for some reason, there's a tendency to diminuendo in these bars, but don't diminuendo in these bars. Stay strong. I like to put forte, forte, where it's needed. Now here at the bottom of the page, key moment that requires the great agility that I was talking about just a moment ago. So we turn this into an 8th rest for this alto tenor bass here. We take the breath, and then in that 8th note rest, take in lots of air. Ble, et, but soft. For soprano, we sustain longer, but take the same 8th breath. Ble, de. Sorry, the words de. And no crescendo until the next bar. Do key. And for do, to make the crescendo successful, it's important to make do plenty bright. Don't swallow too much do. No. Do, ki, re, tu. And for the tu, just like jou, we have to pucker the lips, the same as e. All fairly similar placement of the lips. Jou, retourne, complet. Okay, can we try it from where? How about reçois les chants? Okay, and 1. Soprano. Tenor. Now crescendo. And stay strong. Forte sempre. Stay strong. Retourne. Lift. Espressivo. Oops.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Technical difficulty.
No, I understand. Let's go back to the same place. We can redo that from reçois. So let's start everybody from reçois on the online score, bottom of page 15, starting with the bass. Reçois les chants. And 1. Crescendo. Big sound. Stay strong. Retour. Soft. Espressivo. Rhythm here. Full value. Et deux. Full value. Qui, re, tu. Nice and bright. Excellent. And then at the very end, comble. Don't be afraid to sing the final notes. Make sure that they're not too dark. If they're too dark, that it ends up sounding like a very labored ending, and it really shouldn't. It should be, just like in the Requiem, a very bright, beautiful sound at the end. Hopeful. Turn coble. Okay, let's move on to the Requiem now. And we'll start with the first movement. We've actually read through the whole piece. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Okay, opening of the Requiem. Just like with the Cantique de Jean Racine, we flip the R at the beginning. This is Latin, but the treatment is the same. Requiem aeternam. Lots of air, but soft. Here we go. 3, 4. Soft. Full value. Crescendo. Full value. Up on 3. Breathe. Full value. Okay, fantastic opening to this piece. Be sure at the end that we sing is and not is, yeah? And for is, closer to the A here, but it's not the same A as the accent aigu in the Cantique de Jean Racine. It's not that bright. It's not is, just a little brighter than S, somewhere in between. Is. And if you sing is at the end, it becomes the beautiful connective tissue to the tenor part in the next moment. Requiem. So make sure we sing is there. Working our way back. This triple piano, I suppose if you had 100 singers singing this, that it might be possible, but if you have a group the size of WAS, say 40 singers, I would say make this no softer than double piano, so we can cross out one of these pianos here. It's just a matter of the personnel that we have available. We don't want to be afraid of this moment, yeah, for the light. Light eternal, yeah? Lu, che, at, e. We need to be able to hear the light. Working our way backwards as well. This double piano here, the same as I just mentioned. Before that, 2 before letter B, as in Brahms, our composer of next week. We want to cut off here on beat 3 with a soft T. Che, at, very soft T. And we have something similar, a couple of bars before that. Lu, che, at, on the downbeat. So just cut off the 8th note as we do in other styles, other composers. It's a similar concept. One moment here I wanted to mention, yes, at letter A, remind yourself that we crescendo, but that we start piano. It's perfectly natural, and I've heard it, I've done it myself, where we start mezzo forte. It looks per, but that's too loud. It looks per. It's really text painting, right? That the light emerges. It looks per. Okay, let's go on. Let's go to the tenor part now, starting with the andante moderato, 2 before the tenor entrance. All right, 3 and 4. Tenor. And the same crescendo here. Excellent. Okay, let me just say a couple words about this. Tenor, it's piano, yes, soft, but it's also dolce and important, espressivo. So the piano, I think, is just a suggestion here that the whole affect should be soft, but not without expression. Requiem aeternam. Just as the text would be spoken. Dona elis Domine. So that we hear the ebb and flow there according to the stress and unstress of the words. This is what the tenors live for, just great moments here. This crescendo at letter C, big sweeping crescendo. Et lux perpetua, lu, and with a little lift before lu. Okay, can we start now a couple bars after that, middle of the page, where it says dolce espressivo? All right, 3 and 4. Espressivo tenors and sweeping crescendo, strong, forte forte, and soft soft. Sopranos, lots of air, and full value. Okay, so before we go on, let me just talk quickly about this here. Sopranos, like the tenors, have a great moment, and one, if you've sung this piece, we surely remember it because it's so perfectly written for the voice. Very lyrical, and it just fits. It just works. Te decet hymnus. Make sure on hymnus that we sing the E there, and not the hymnus. Not like a hymn, but hymnus. Take the breath as marked. Deus, and then let's sing in Sion. Sion. Some versions might have you sing Zion, but I prefer Sion here. Sion. Just careful sopranos that not too loud as we raise the tessitura. Dolce, not quite as espressivo as the tenors before you. This is more sweet. Think about the trebles, yeah, in the boy choir. Okay, a much purer sound. The espressivo moments come later in the piece. Deus in Sion et tibi detur. Ah, right, and 2 before F, sopranos, the treatment of the eighth notes here, similar to in the Cantique de Jean Racine, I put the little wedges to tell us to articulate. In Jerusalem, and Yeru, with the Yeru, and we flip the R. In Jerusalem, and full value on lem, all the way to beat 3. Okay, can we go back to Te decet hymnus with soprano? Te decet. 3 and 4. Full value. Articulate. Full value. 2T and strong. Stay strong. let's talk a little bit about this section where we have some of the widest dynamic range, really, of the whole piece. Events happening very quickly in a short amount of time, from soft to loud, loud to soft. Make sure that we note these, but especially where they occur in the bar. It's easy to anticipate, say, an exaudi, to start crescendoing here, but don't crescendo there. Crescendo only on the final note. Exaudi ora. Very difficult to wait, but the patience will pay off here if we crescendo only where printed. And the same with the diminuendo. Oratio me. And for everybody here, let's sing me'am. Not me'am, but me'am. If you sing me'am there, probably going to be out of tune, especially after the diminuendo. So me'am. Then on the next page, we have the forte sempre marked. And for some reason, and this happened when I sang it as well, I tend to diminuendo in these bars, but don't diminuendo. Stay very, very strong. I think after all of the loud, soft, soft, loud, we get into that pattern, but this breaks the pattern. Make sure we do exactly as printed. Remind yourself, if you have to, circle forte sempre, and then put forte again, and in this part at the bottom, omnis, on all, omnis caro, we start strong, and only after that do we diminuendo on omnis. Okay, let's go back to letter F for exaudi. 3 and 4. Crescendo. Subito. Stay strong, strong. Stay strong. Start strong. Om. Then gentle. Soft. Ki. Kyrie. Ki. Bass. Subito. Okay, before we go on, I'm going to talk about this a little bit here, because there are a lot of it straightforward, but there are some surprises. Notice, everybody, if you watched the lecture last week on Fauré, this next part will be a little more familiar to us, because he uses the same technique in the piano quartet, where we have this sudden move to unison very effectively. The accompaniment drives us forward with harmony and the rhythm, and yet everybody else is in unison. So I'd say no louder than piano here, but espressivo, just like the tenor part before. Kyrie, Kyrie, Kyrie eleison. And everybody, let's use the eighth notes in this edition. I presume this is for a different treatment of the text, but do sing the eighth notes here. Crescendo as printed, diminuendo, but there is a moment on the next page where we have to be very careful at letter J. After this, Christe eleison. Very easy to follow the pattern and sing forte at letter J, but not too jolly at letter J. Make sure it's soft. Christe, Christe. Very soft. So basses, remind yourselves. I like to put it at the top of the page. Piano, sempre, or something like that, just so we know what's coming. Okay, can we go back to Kyrie before letter H? All right, 3 and 4. Espressivo. Start soft. Crescendo. Full value. Subito. Stay soft, soft. And then a little pulse. Yeah, yeah. Air, breathe. Breathe. Full value. Right. A tremendous ending to the opening movement of this piece, and let's keep it tremendous and misterioso at the end. And we achieve that through singing soft, but more important, not too dark. If we sing too dark, then it becomes kind of labored. You can still sing misterioso, soft, and bright if you also add a little bit of breathiness to the sound. And when I do the piece, I like to add little tenutos with just a tiny little separation. Yeah, we're still within the arch, okay, within the legato, but I find that little separation there is highly effective and certainly sets us up for the next movement. Okay, speaking of the next movement, let's go on to movement number 2. Offertorio, and Mun-Tzung can start this one on her own. And 3. Stay soft. value. Okay, excellent. Okay, let's go over. So this movement, I think by far is the most challenging in terms of the notes, the actual pitches. And Fauré is incredibly ingenious and also incredibly cruel to make us all of a sudden sing a cappella. But don't be afraid, because there's great joy in singing a cappella. It's just challenging, that's all. And luckily, it's not solo. Luckily, we have the section to support us. Before we sing these parts, so let me just make a note to the basses before I forget. After letter C, basses, make sure that this O domine, that this is D natural. So be sure to listen to Mun-Tzung and the accompaniment. You've heard so much modal mixture before this with G sharps and all these double sharps and things that it's easy to sing this as D sharp, but should be D natural, so plenty low on that note. Okay, let's go back now. And Mun-Tzung, could you just start by playing the alto part? I'm sorry, the tenor part at their entrance. What is that? Bottom of the first page, from the D natural. Go ahead. Right. Okay. So tenors here, just before or just after de functorum, we really have to turn this into a 16th note, take a lift, but there's no reason for us to go on in tempo. So this will be an extended breath. De functo de pa. In fact, waiting there will help to build the drama. So tenors, be sure we take in plenty of air and no need to rush on. Whenever we sing with this kind of modal mixture here, especially in the bars before where tenors you've heard all these G sharps and A sharps, it's important here to mark in that this is G natural. And I would even mark in that this is C sharp, so that we hear this essentially ascending tritone. Okay? All right. Let's try it now, tutti, starting with the alto. O domine. Okay, 2 and 3. Tenor. Natural. Full value. Little lift. Sorry, one thing that I forgot to mention is that at the beginning, now there are a couple of ways to approach this piece. Do we do it in a divided 4, in 8, or do we do it as just a slow 4? And I prefer to do the latter, so that here, 1 and 2 and 3, O domine. This is important because when we come to the moment where we just stopped, I'd like us to sing full value, but in the slow tempo, we need to be having the subdivision in our head. Mi, E, off. Okay? So this is different from the opening movement where I had us cut off the 8th notes. Here we want to sing the 8th notes, but taper off on those 8th notes. Ni, E, et de profund. We have it several times, like before letter B as well. Fundo la aku and 2 off. Yeah. Okay, can we start from letter A? All right, top of page 14. Letter A. See that? 3 and 4 and. That. Full value and 2. Full value and 2. E sharp. As before, lift. Two. Same. Bass, D natural. And taper off. Te, A. And E. Great. Okay, a couple words about these final bars here. Where is this? Before letter C, okay, it's a little bit tricky. If we're going to do the piece in 4, then it's tricky, the placement of the S, like on Nice before letter C. But it's, if we're counting in our head the subdivision, not so difficult. Ni, E, S, and a very, very soft S, not Nice, but Ni, E. And if we all do it that soft, then it'll come together nicely. And if there's a couple that don't place it exactly on the end of 2, then we won't hear it so much. Then before letter C, make sure we wait until beat 4. Ne absorbeat. And the same thing bottom of the page on Rus, just like Nice. Ru, U. You barely heard it, right? But if we all do it that volume, it'll come together nicely. Okay. Now, letter D, let's make sure that this is probably the most challenging part in terms of the entrances. It seems to come out of nowhere and really is in line with what I said last week in the lecture about Fauré's almost unique ability to make rapid shifts in harmony that somehow sound totally natural. And I think other composers would be quite jarring. But in Fauré, he does it with such finesse that it just feels right. Still challenging to sing, but it feels right. We prepare the air, though, letter D, to make it easier to sing by in these beats to breathe. Ne, ka. And if we sing this as ne, it'll be much more in tune. Not ne ka, not no ka, no. Ne ka, ne ka. Nice and bright. Bottom of the page, dant. All the way to beat 2. And just like the soft S, a soft T, dant. Yeah? Right in the front of the teeth, almost at the roof of the mouth. Dant. And it'll come together nicely. Same here, like nekandant with in obscur. Breathe at the beginning of the bar. In obscurum. And then off on 3. Okay, can we try that much from... Let's go back to, pick up to letter C. Chocolat, letter C. 2 and 3. Full value. Full value. Breathe. Breathe. Okay, excellent. So we'll have to stop there today on the Requiem. Sorry to stop it so soon, but we have to move on to the Brahms Geistliches Lied. And this segues nicely into next week's rehearsal, when I'll be giving a presentation on the composer Brahms, similar as I did with Fauré. But I'll be honest with you, it's impossible to contain Brahms in 15 minutes or 15 hours even. You could spend a lifetime discovering his work. It's infinitely great, but I'm happy to explore it with you and show you some of his principal pieces, one of which is the Geistliches Lied, which we'll sing now. From the top, 4 and 1. Lots of air soprano. Lass dich. Lass. Very light, light. Espressivo. Full value. Was willst? Crescendo and forte. Now crescendo. And full value. Sei nur. Tenor. Alto, espressivo, yeah? Bass. Tenor. And light, light, light. As we talked about last time, breathe. Diminuendo bass, alto. Now big crescendo. lots of air. Now stay strong. Forte. Alto. Full value. Crescendo. Okay, that's all the time we have for this week. Let's thank our accompanist, as always, Mun-Tzung, for her fine work. Thank you, Mun-Tzung. They're clapping for you in cyberspace. And again, join us next week. Same time, same place, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock every Tuesday night here on YouTube, live and on demand. And next week, as I mentioned, I'll be giving a brief lecture. We'll be touching on some of the key pieces in Brahms' life and his musical output, so be looking for that. Have a good week, everybody. Good night. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good rehearsal. I know that I did. Always a pleasure making music, especially with these great pieces. Let's get to the comments. Let's bring those up. Ooh, lots of comments tonight. First comment is from Donna, our expert en français. She's absolutely correct. It is paisible. That's a mistake that I often make with the S in sung French. Not always, but in this case, it is the Z sound, the paisible. So, merci beaucoup, Donna, for that. Always good keeping me in check. Okay, what else? Lori says, Ben, can you please cite the measure numbers? Unfortunately, in this edition, in these two editions actually, there are no bar numbers. And this actually leads into Terry's question about which edition am I using? I'm using the public domain edition that's available on IMSLP, and there's a link to all three scores in the description below, so be sure to click on those. But if you're just joining us this week, you don't know that I mentioned this several weeks ago, that you have a paper version, which is one edition. I'm using a different edition. Your edition is copyrighted. I can't show the copyrighted material on YouTube, so I'm forced to use the public domain edition. The notes should be the same. There might be some minor differences, but if you're having trouble following along, I don't blame you. I would be too. First rule that I tell any up-and-coming conductor is don't mix editions. But in this case, I have to. So I ask that you bear with me, and if you're able to, then download the score, the PDF, from the link in the description below, and I think it'll be much easier instead of having to compute, okay, this text with this bar becomes very confusing. So appreciate your patience with that. What else here? Yes, another, Tim suggests using measure numbers. Again, unfortunately, only in the Brahms do we have the measure numbers. Otherwise, I'm forced to use only the text. And actually, Mun-Tzung and I are in the same position where I'm just saying the text and then she has to find the place. So I think this is just the situation that we're in. I think it's pretty marvelous that we can have these rehearsals at all, but there are some shortcomings, and that is one of the shortcomings. If you're a copyright lawyer, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, let's see, anything else here? Keep the comments coming, everybody. I think it's important that we continue the community aspect of this endeavor, and ask me anything you want about music, about Westchester Oratorio Society, about the future of WOS. At this point, the future is very much up in the air in terms of when we're going to meet again. So we're going to be meeting virtually for the foreseeable future, but I have great hope that we will get together again in person someday soon, both in Katona and in our performance venue. In December, we are planning on having a Messiah sing-along, but that will also be done virtually, very much the same as you see here. So I think this is going to be the way it is. Okay, that looks like it for now. Irene says grazie, and I say prego. All right. So now we're going to move on to something else. I'm very excited about this. This is our first ever live call-in. So if you would please welcome our soprano section leader, Dr. Julia Carell. Welcome, Dr. Carell. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be back.
Thanks for being here. So tell us, Julia, what role has music played in your life during the pandemic?
Well, of course, obviously there was this sudden huge void when everything was cancelled, not just our rehearsals, but also no performances and concerts to attend anymore. So that was pretty devastating and quite depressing. But yeah, so over the summer I tried to obviously fill this by making music at home and listening to the radio as much as possible. But it's really not the same as making music together. So I'm quite grateful that we have this opportunity now at least once a week to meet in the safety of our homes and make music.
I echo that. And you mentioned getting together to make music together. What do you miss the most about rehearsing together and performing together live with other people?
Well, of course, I miss the community aspect. I miss seeing all you guys and chatting before the rehearsals and during the break. But for me, music really only becomes alive when we are making it together, when we are singing together and enjoying it together. So this is still something that is missing, and let's hope we can get back together soon.
I have high hopes about that. So tell us, of the pieces that you had the opportunity to sing, which are your favorite?
I'm a big fan of the Baroque, but of all the pieces that I've sung and performed, the most memorable and probably the most influential in my life and my musical career was when I had the opportunity to sing Bach's Weihnachtsoratorium, Christmas Oratorio, all 6 cantatas in one performance, which is now more than 20 years ago, but it's still one of my most favorite and cherished memories.
It's great work. When I was still living in Chicago, I had the opportunity to see the late Peter Schreier also perform the work in its entirety with the Chicago Symphony. He was both conducting and singing. It was quite inspiring. Great work. WOS has performed moments of that as well. Do you have a musical bucket list? Anything that you're really hopeful about singing?
Well, unfortunately, we cut the top of my bucket list short in March. My absolute most desired piece to sing and perform is Bach's Mass in B minor, and hopefully we can continue doing practicing for it and rehearsing for it as soon as we can get back together and cap it off as a performance.
For those who are perhaps not a part of Westchester Oratorio, in March we had our last rehearsal, which was rehearsing that piece, the Bach Mass in B minor, for a performance in the spring. Didn't come to pass. It's postponed indefinitely, but I have high hopes about it. And the performance was made possible by a very generous grant from the Westchester Community Foundation as part of their initiative to promote German culture in Westchester. We received it once before. We performed Haydn's Creation in German, so they were very generous to give it to us again. Switching gears a little bit, Julia, tell us about your process of learning a piece of music from the moment that you read it until the moment that you perform it. Give us some insight into how you work.
Well, if it's a completely new piece, usually the read-through in our first rehearsal is the first time I kind of really hear it. So we get the scores, and I really like seeing it in the piece in its entity and getting the full scope in the first rehearsal, even though this can be really daunting, singing through an entire piece that we've never done before. But going from there, I try to listen to the pieces as much as I can, drawing from great performances from the likes of John Elliott Gardner on YouTube or so forth, and listening in the car while working to make up for the time that I don't have to practice with a full-time job. And then in the weekly rehearsals, for me, it's important to understand how you, as the conductor, want to interpret the piece in terms of the dynamics and so forth, but also identify the really tricky spots so that I can practice those ones in particular at home, be it using cyber bass and other materials or just sitting down at a piano and hammering them out until I get them. So by the time of the performance, I hopefully know the piece so well that I don't have to read it off the score anymore, but really ideally know it by heart, that I can focus on dynamics and watching the conductor.
That old saying, be prepared. Well, a final question. What can we do, and this is a big question, but what can we do to ensure the survival of classical choral music, not just through the pandemic, but beyond?
Oh, I mean, support is the most important part, be it during these times where it's even more important, but any other time as well. It's support the organization, support boss, join us, pay your dues, and if you can, give more, obviously. That really helps to keep the organization going and enables us to perform these masterpieces with great musicians from the city, soloists and instrumentalists. And yeah, now obviously this is more important than ever, so we have to hang in there for the time that we cannot meet in person. And I'm very glad that the board bought into this idea of these virtual rehearsals so that we still have some community aspect going. And I'm absolutely sure we get through this, and there will be a time where we will meet again. And yeah, until then, we make the best out of what we have. And I'm very, very thankful that with you and Mun-Tzung, we have two excellent people that can actually make this happen, both from a technical as well as a musical perspective. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thanks for taking the time out of your evening to give us your comments. And if you are willing to call in and chat about some of the things that Julia and I just talked about, be it music or life, I encourage you to do so. Write me at westchesteroratorio@gmail.com. There's a link to that in the description below. Again, westchesteroratorio@gmail.com. It'll be very much like you just saw, and we'll just talk and chat following the rehearsal. On that said, we'll see you here next week, everybody. Every Tuesday night, 7 to 8 p.m., live and on demand on YouTube. Have a good week.